It is my privilege to address you today on the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. This day is observed by individuals and collectives, institutions such as this, governments, every year to reflect on and build solidarity for the just freedom struggle of the Palestinian people. This year, however, this day is marked with an unprecedented pain and poignancy. As we mourn the loss of all civilian lives, we are gathered today, nearly 2 months into an ongoing genocide in Gaza. People before me have mentioned that more than 15,000 people have been killed, lives extinguished by the apartheid Israel, which are just, each of them, as valuable as yours and mine. 1.7 million people forcibly displaced from their homes, generations of families wiped out, neighborhoods, universities bombed, hospitals invaded and destroyed. Doctors have been performing amputations without anesthesia on hospital floors. Communities are being forced into starvation. In this day and age, this is chilling beyond belief, and yet it is ongoing, and yet there is not nearly enough being done to stop it. So on this momentous day, perhaps one thing we can concretely do is answer the question, what would solidarity with the Palestinian people mean today as they endure their genocide? The answer to this question can take many forms, and it looks different depending on where in the world order you speak from. But there is a bottom line. There is a genocide being carried out by an apartheid settler colonial regime, and this needs to end. On the question of genocide, 36 UN experts have described Israel's genocide in making against 2.3 million Palestinians in the occupied and besieged Gaza Strip. The leading international law scholar on the crime of genocide, William Shabazz, has stated in a legal opinion that indeed there is a serious risk that Israel is committing the crime of genocide in Gaza. Prominent genocide and Holocaust studies scholars Omar Bartov, as well as 880 international scholars, US-based Center for Constitutional Rights, Palestinian human rights organizations have also warned of an unfolding genocide. Prominent Israeli genocide scholar Raz Segal and ex-director of the Office of High Commissioner of Human Rights in New York, Craig Mokhibir, have called it a textbook case of genocide unfolding in front of our eyes. The International Criminal Court founding prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo has warned that Israel's ongoing blockade of Palestinians in Gaza is extermination and could amount to genocide, urging to stop the ongoing crime even before investigating that crime that have been committed. On the question of apartheid, there is Palestinian civil society that first raised this demand in the Durban Anti-Racism Conference in 2001, the Civil Society Conference. In the recent years, Israeli human rights organizations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, various UN Special Rapporteurs, the former United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon have all recognized this as an apartheid regime. From Sri Lanka, His Excellency Mohan Paris, along with permanent representatives of Malaysia and Senegal as part of end of mission statement by the UN Special Committee to investigate Israeli practices in June 2023 stated that this year the Special Committee was presented with the clearest evidence it has seen in 55 years history of Israeli policies that systematically violate human rights of the Palestinian people in a manner many interlocutors see as akin to apartheid. Why am I bringing up these concepts that are being talked about? Many have mentioned, many have expressed an exasperation towards. It's because those enduring this apartheid and those living through this genocide call upon the rest of the world to act just as they would in the case of genocide and apartheid anywhere else in the world. Genocide and apartheid are crimes against humanity. They demand that they be stopped by states, by individuals, by everyone around the world, as was done in South Africa. But while we witness this, and while these crimes are being committed, Western powers are leading in arming, funding, and enabling it. Western hypocrisy permeates so many aspects The ICC prosecutor's failure to fulfill his obligations underlines what majority of states of the global south see as an irrefutable double standard, particularly when compared to the prosecutor's action in Ukraine after the invasion by Russia. Similarly, global sports and cultural bodies rush to sanction Russia, but when asked to hold Israel accountable for the same crimes, they decry that sports and culture should not be politicized. But this reality, the way this is being perceived by global powers, leaving some exceptions, is engaged with in a very different manner by the global south. Palestine is not a problem in this part of the world. Its liberation is a condition of our own true liberation. For we may have won our independence from colonial powers of the 20th century. In 21st century, Palestine remains, as South African jurist John Dugard said, the litmus test of human rights and international law. Our world today is governed by this system, but its independence and sanctity are heavily being compromised, and it is upon us to wrest that sanctity, to wrest that legality, to wrest its meaning. Why else would the majority of 121 nations that voted for a humanitarian truce in the United Nations General Assembly are still waiting? We are still all waiting for that truce. What we have is a pause right now before the bombing resumes. How does the global south contrast to this in its own history and context? Around the period that most global south nations secured their independence, Palestine was colonized at the same time. All of our newly independent nations aspired to chart an ambitious territory for our future, our tryst with destiny, as Pandit Nehru called it. This took the form of the first Asian-African Bandung Conference, followed by the non-aligned movement. Palestinian liberation was always front and center in this global south emergence, as we saw our struggles intrinsically linked to that of the Palestinian people. In the following years, apartheid in South Africa got dismantled after decades of grassroots mobilization, accompanied by concrete action by the United Nations and global south states, such as ours. This included sanctions and boycotts. And about 5 decades after we in the South affirmed that colonialism can be defeated, South Africa taught us that apartheid can also be defeated. But Nelson Mandela, after spending decades in prison and leading his people to the end of apartheid, proclaimed that our liberation is incomplete without the liberation of the Palestinian people. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the icon of the anti-apartheid struggle, said that after his visit to occupied Palestinian territories, that what he saw there is worse than South African apartheid. Of course, there is a lot that is underway from the global south. South Africa has also led the effort to recognize the state of Israel as an apartheid state, bringing this up in its UN General Assembly addresses, as well as through the foreign minister often. Malaysia, Indonesia, Belize, Namibia, and more countries have also acknowledged this reality. In 2020, the Global South response that emerged as a response to Palestinian civil society's call against Israel's annexation and apartheid saw 10 ex-presidents and hundreds of MPs from Asia, Africa, and Latin America calling for adopting a resolution which renews the call for targeted and lawful sanctions, including military embargo, and for promoting the activation of UN Special Committee on Apartheid, just as was done in the case of South Africa. Currently, 5 state parties, including South Africa, Bangladesh, Bolivia, Comoros, and Djibouti, have referred the situation in the state of Palestine to the ICC prosecutor, citing, among other crimes, genocide and apartheid. This is followed by a submission by Palestinian human rights organizations calling on his office to issue arrest warrants against Israeli leaders. You've seen in the last 2 months several states, including South Africa, Belize, Chile, Colombia, Honduras, Bahrain, Jordan, Chad, that have either ended ties or recalled ambassadors. These are all concrete steps that these states have taken out of their commitment to the Palestinian liberation struggle against apartheid and genocide, but also, very importantly, because there is pressure from the streets all over the world. These are questions that we can talk about and we should talk about in Sri Lanka as well. What are the concrete steps that a state like Sri Lanka can take, which has supported the call for humanitarian truce in the emergency session, which has consistently been in favor of Palestinian rights, which has in the past ended ties with Israel, as you would know. There is a way forward, and this way has been achieved not in a vacuum. It has been achieved because people from Tokyo to Los Angeles, from Auckland to Amman have been filling the streets, have been calling for a ceasefire, have been calling for an end to genocide, have been calling for measures to stop this. And it is in this, people have organized actions that are so creative. People have organized sit-ins. They have asked ships to not handle cargo. Indian workers who were called upon to go and provide services because Palestinian workers are not being allowed to enter Israel. Majority of Indian unions came together and said that we will not be objectified, we will not be dehumanized, and we will not be complicit in Israel's genocide. Dock workers, especially in countries that are transit countries for weapons to reach Israel, have refused to handle these weapons. Jewish leaders, Jewish community organizers have occupied the Congress, the Statue of Liberty, iconic spots in the United States, calling on their government to take action towards ceasefire. And in all these actions, what's relevant is that it is the reflection of this pressure from the street that today states are acting, states are noticing, and we have to continue building this peaceful, non-violent pressure. And this is where we can change policy, and this is where the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is relevant. The boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is underpinned by 3 demands, which is to end occupation, end apartheid, and end settler colonialism, including the right of return for Palestinian refugees. The grassroots action with solidarity groups, unions, students, climate justice activists, a whole range of intersectional groups is what makes BDS a global movement. It is led by the largest Palestinian civil society coalition, which was launched in 2005, and today all over the world, there are people that organize BDS campaigns, that are BDS chapters, that follow the very simple principle of grassroots boycotts that animated Palestinians, that also animated Indians under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, the US civil rights movement, the South African anti-apartheid movement. So the tools are there, they have been there for us. The question is, how do we translate that into a reality to create pressure from the ground? Because that is the only way that we can get policy to change. And this is the question that I want to leave you with, that our states, our governments will respond if we keep asking, if we keep demanding. And boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement provides that opportunity to do that, not just today, during this ongoing genocide, but also what happens tomorrow, what happens a few days later. We cannot let this pressure go because we cannot have another genocide. We cannot let this repeat. In fact, I want to leave you with the words of His Excellency Mohan Paris in his statement presenting his committee's report on Palestinian people and other Arabs of occupied territory, that never again applies to all people. This war must end now. History is already judging us all. And with this in mind, I invite you to build grassroots struggle to continue its solidarity with the Palestinian people, and we appreciate the support that Sri Lanka has extended, and we hope that this could translate into concrete action. Thank you very much.